Hello everybody, welcome back to Vinyl Tap here on That's Not Metal. This is our physical media merch show. Got a pile of records to go. Last one of these was from Sam. Today, I'm back. Last time, I believe, I did this when it was all the big box sets like I've got over there. Back to kind of individual singles and so on here now. I'm just going to show the first record straight off the bat before explaining what the sort of the rest of the video is going to be, because this is, I guess, the outlier. But first thing I want to show is this, which is Unto Others, Strength to Deep Cuts. This is my one 2023 release that I have so far. It's probably the release I've listened to the most this year, even though it is just an EP, 6 songs. I thought I'd just show this here because I believe one of these videos I showed off basically the entire Unto Others kind of collection up to this point, which they've only got 2 albums so far, but there's been a lot of individual releases and stuff around it, and I'm glad to add this one later to the pile. Like I said, it's probably the release I've listened to the most so far because Strength was my album of the year that came out. These songs, you got these first 3 tracks that are sort of fully developed songs from around that era. Then we have Passion Rules the Game, the Scorpions cover that has totally given that song a new lease of life. And then even the 2 songs at the back that are labeled demos are fucking superlative. I mean, when the hammer strikes particularly, like I want to see them do that song live and everything. I have listened to this record now so much this year that I'm glad they didn't, just for the momentum of it and everything, but I probably would have been fine with Strength being a double album if that was their original plan for it. I say about this being a 2023 release, this is actually the 2022 Record Store Day edition, which is on this sort of sea blue kind of translucent look. I didn't go out on Record Store Day and find it like that. What happened was when it got its kind of wide release at the start of this year, for some reason I went to go and buy it online, and it was easier for me to track down a Record Store Day copy in like a local record store or something than it was to actually import the one they did from earlier this year. So this is the 2022 version of it, but I'm still counting it as 2023. But yeah, incredible EP. Unto Other collection is now up to date again. Let's move on with the bulk of this video, which is kind of going to be going to the extremes of very old and very new, and I'm gonna do it in that order. I've got some stuff that's like I picked up from the end of last year, some of the stuff that was on my album of the year list, and so on, clearing that through. But also, I've got a pile of records here that I went down to my folks down in Cornwall over Christmas, and I popped into a local sort of music store in there that I used to go in and buy CDs in after school when I was a teenager. Who knows how many treasures I missed by not going and looking at the vinyl shelves at that point in time. But this was like total just vintage, picking up some oldies for pretty cheap, and I guess I'm going to show those now. Like I said, these are all I guess original copies and stuff of these. We're very much in an old school little run here. First up is the Scorpions and Blackout, which all of these records I'm about to show, I think I've mentioned in some of these other videos. Last year, and I guess still to now, I was on a real like old school 70s rock and so on, early 80s kick. And there's a couple of bands from sort of that era that I liked, but I needed to go in on more fully. And the Scorpions last year was one of those big deep dives where this is my favorite Scorpions record. I know it's the one that Scorpions album art, man, like what were they on at this point in time? Like this, Love Drive, Animal Magnetism, Virgin Killer, just so fucking bizarre. But this is the Scorpions album that's probably the most celebrated, iconic one that gets in those lists of the greatest metal albums ever, all that. I think I will go blockbuster pick, and Love at First Sting I think is pretty rock solid. I really love Taken by Force as well, maybe In a Trance. But this is just a really, again, Scorpions were a 70s rock band who kind of got to a point of delivering just some kick-ass early 80s heavy metal that was totally on par with what was going on there. And Blackout is part of that period, maybe sort of the peak of that period before going on to contend a little bit with kind of the glam metal stuff in the later 80s, which is when you get something like, When Passion Rules the Game, which is covered on that Unto Others record. This, again, when buying old records, you get shit like this, thinking of giving this someone as a record as a gift. Some kind of card system. Obviously, this is just on a black vinyl because it's from 1982, but a quality, you know, just banger heavy metal record from the early 80s there. Next up is Rainbow, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, as they are credited here, and this is the debut album, which I believe is just self-titled in that regard. Gatefold, ooh, it was fancy when you get a gatefold from this period in time. There's this picture of Ritchie that they used on like everything in this period. Again, in one of the previous videos I showed Rainbow Rising was a record that I picked up, and that is like a superlative 70s rock, sort of proto heavy metal record. This is even though, you know, it's got Man on the Silver Mountain on it, which is probably the biggest Rainbow song, at least, you know, original from the kind of Ronnie James Dio era. I was watching last year I watched the new Dio documentary that's just come out, which is co-directed by, I believe, Damien from Pissgrave. Fun fact there, you know, his rock docs are as good as his death metal is absolutely repugnant. But they were talking there about, you know, Ritchie Blackmore and Ronnie James Dio. They kind of came together with Rainbow, wanting to do something that was more inspired by, took more from, you know, kind of classical music and the great composers there than the kind of you know, blues or funk side of what was going on in sort of 70s rock at the time. I think that does apply more to Rising, whereas here, you know, stuff like, you know, that intro of Man on the Silver Mountain, do ding 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 ding, that's, you know, that kind of honky tonk thing that is maybe more, you know, you could mistake that maybe for something like Deep Purple when you can't really anything that's on Rising, but this is just a great 70s rock record in that regard. Temple of the King, huge track. I should now get the third Ronnie James Dio Rainbow record, which is sort of the most the least you know, celebrated of them, but it's got some absolutely wicked stuff on there. Just complete that sort of trio, because man, that I've not really bothered so much with Rainbow kind of past the Ronnie James Dio era. I think you know, the Ronnie Ritchie axis is kind of what creates the most interesting stuff. But that is a really golden little triptych of rock records there. So again, got Rising already. Happy to have this absolute hit of a record there with its fucking Super Mario album art and everything. Next up, speaking of those bands, again, I did big dives on and everything. ZZ Top and Eliminator. Again, I'm fully in my dad era with these, but look how cool those guys are on the back there. ZZ Top, listened to shitloads in the last year, because it's that kind of thing of them being a supercharged blues band, not far off from Motorhead and stuff like that in terms of how they took, you know, blues music and just kind of turned it into, you know, this hell-raising, beer-drinking type thing. Eliminator is, you know, the ZZ Top record that I knew I liked before doing that, because, you know, the track list on this record, Give Me All Your Lovin', Got Me Under Pressure, Legs, obviously, of course, Sharp Dressed Man, huge riff, I don't care who you are. But the thing with that blues thing about ZZ Top, one of my sort of great things of going through their discography and figuring out kind of what band they are and everything is, you think of them, you could, on first glance, you could look at them and be like, oh, we're very, you know, blues traditionalists or whatever, just very old school. That doesn't sell how kind of progressive and forward-thinking they were, because, you know, once you get into Eliminator and these records from kind of the 80s period of ZZ Top, they're using synthesizers, and, you know, this is like, you know, kind of electronic up super MTV blues rock that is, you know, it's not traditionalist. There would certainly be, you know, blues purists out there who would not approve of that. And in that sense, ZZ Top, to me, they become closer to someone like Rush in terms of like how they're actually willing to take risks with what they were doing and embrace, you know, future technologies and stuff like that, which is, again, for like a blues rock act, is a really bold and interesting kind of combination of things there. So huge respect to ZZ Top as artists, as well as just, you know, cool rockin' dudes. I don't know why I'm just showing all these records constantly, they're all black, but I suppose you get the old cool labels and stuff. There's the Warner Brothers record label and stuff. You know, the car and everything. This record is iconic. It is just a full hell for leather 80s pop rock banger. Very much needs to, again, the discovery for me was going back into records like kind of Trey Hombre and Fandango and stuff like that, that then contextualize kind of the the direction they took on something like this. But properly great period of time, you know, that ZZ Top made records from, you know, the kind of early 70s up to and slightly past this for, you know, a good decade plus. Top-notch band. The thing I was maybe the most excited to find this particular, again, I was just in a very small local record store in Camborne in Cornwall, is this, which is the Tangerine Dream film score for the William Friedkin film Sorcerer. If you've never seen Sorcerer, it's one of those kind of classics of 70s cinema that isn't, you know, it's not like, you know, The Godfather big, but, you know, if you go into film circles, it's a pretty well-loved film. Terrifying film in that it's about, like, this image on the front, it's about some guys who have to drive these trucks full of, like, explosives basically through the fucking, like, you know, South American rainforest, and if there's the slightest sort of movement in their truck, the explosives will go off, and they obviously have to fucking go through these mental rope bridges and stuff like that, and it's just like, it's tense as hell, but it's also like this weird kind of mythical odyssey that feels a bit like almost like a dream or a kind of purgatory for them or something like that. And that's where the Tangerine Dream score really comes in, because Tangerine Dream, I believe German act, one of those you know, very heavily synonymous with the direction that film scores took in, you know, the 1980s and stuff, of like electronic synth scores and things like that, and made a bunch of you know, awesome stuff in that regard that kind of lays down a lot of the blueprint for that. Even, you know, going to today, it's bands like, you know, Walls on the Throne Room and Blood Incantation and stuff like that, when they've done their records that lean those kind of directions. Stuff like Tangerine Dream is one of the absolute biggest reference points. I'd love to get the score they did for Near Dark, which is one of my favourite kind of 80s horror movies, but that's a cool one that they did. But this, like I said, this is from the 70s, and it's very much got that kind of meditative, darkly kind of you know, absorbing feel that I suppose the kind of epic mythic journey of the film goes on. Again, this is a total one of those, like, you know, 70s vintage finds. Il Solaro della Paura, I don't know if that is maybe Italian for something like this. I'm not sure why it would be in that regard. I don't know exactly. Maybe this is an Italian press or something like that. But you know, just super cool vintage 70s early, you know, electronic krautrock and stuff like that. Awesome score. Cool to put stuff on like this on when it, you know, just got about and need some you know, meditative vibes and so on. Watch Sorcerer if you haven't; it's brilliant. And then the final thing from this is back to the you know, the very much the kind of the classic metal thing. We have got Warlock with Triumph and Agony. Warlock, you certainly know the singer if you don't necessarily know the band, if you've not dived back into your 80s metal. Warlock was a German heavy metal band fronted by the great Doro Pesch, who went on to have her own very successful solo career after the band broke up. The Warlock records, there's maybe about 3 or 4 from kind of the early 80s, when they were one of those breakout German heavy metal bands. Slightly before you get the, like, you know, along with Accept and so on like that, slightly before you then get the power metal waves of Halloween and Blind Guardian and all that kind of thing. This is, I think, the final Warlock record before they split, because it's the most like blockbuster one. It's the one that has, you know, when we were all roasting that Rolling Stone 100 Greatest Metal Songs article, when they just threw in, like, you know, all of, like, you know, every song that was like important in 1983. All We Are from this is, you know, the big kind of Doro anthem there. But this is a pretty just fucking sick 80s metal record beyond there. You're like 3 Minute Warning, she is like popping off on that track vocally. East Meets West is a great tune, and then it's got the huge, you know, German ballad at the end for Ima. Maybe my favourite Warlock record is the first one, Burning the Witch is a song on it. Or is it? It might be the title of the album as well. Can't fucking remember if I said it's my favourite. But that's, like, again, the most sort of like purely scrappy 80s heavy metal. This is them getting to, again, like more steel-clad kind of anthems and stuff like that, which is great. And then there are some good ones in between there as well. I'm curious about the sort of story this album covered, because Doro very much kind of prided herself on, you know, being obviously she's like an icon of, you know, early female, you know, heavy metal kind of stars. who kind of paved the way for, you know, a lot of women to come afterwards. And she prided herself on never having to, like, you know, dress sexy or anything like that. She was always just, you know, like, I'm the metal warrior, I'm the metal queen. Whereas this album cover, you've got, you know, the Warlock, their kind of mascot guy, sort of, you know, getting his hands all over a lady who very much is sort of made to look like Doro Pesch. So I don't know, and, you know, on the back here, he's sort of squeezing her a little bit, and she's, you know, clenching her fist in anguish. Which I don't know, I'm not sure what the story was there. Who sort of, you know, who drew all those ideas, kind of where it goes. But I mean, I do love the cover because it has that total early 80s fantasy kind of, again, like Manowar records and stuff like that, look to it. I mean, like, that is an undeniably fucking stunningly painted image there on the back. But it is just a great metal record. There she is, Doro there, and actually it's quite cool, you know, for an old record. It's quite cool in a lyric sleeves and stuff like that with little illustrations for each song. But if you are on, you know, if you've never gone into Warlock and you like, you know, early 80s stuff again, like Scorpions, Accept, you know, if you like your kind of new wave of British heavy metal stuff, these records I was certainly going to give them a go because they are brilliant treasure troves of a bunch of these kind of tracks. And like I said, that was just a bunch of stuff I picked up in a sort of one big dive in a local record store of all vintage oldie stuff that I'm very happy to have in the collection because they're all, to my mind, they are essentials. The last thing I got from when I was down at my folks was obviously not so old school, but one of my mates, he just randomly had this. He wasn't a fan of it. He said he got given like a box of records from like an uncle or someone like that, and it was just inexplicably this live album from Opeth, the Garden of the Titans live at the Red Rocks Amphitheatre, which I believe the gatefold has the full-on like look of the where they were playing, which looks lovely there. I believe that's in America somewhere. But you know, just weirdly, just kind of this live album of Opeth on the kind of Sorceress cycle, and he was like, you know, you're a fan of this band, I'm not, so have it. Which is, you know, cool. I mean, obviously, thank you, mate. But like, it's weird. Opeth, you know, live album from the kind of Sorcerer cycle, which is an album I like, but you know, that's not necessarily a necessary, like, you know, must-have kind of live album or anything. It's just sort of, you know, if you are a big fan of particularly the later years of Opeth, because, you know, this track list, the death metal songs they put in there from the oldies are, you know, sort of the staples with Ghost of Perdition, Deliverance, Demon of the Fall, and then it's largely based around, you know, the kind of the recent prog rock stuff with tracks from Sorceress and Heritage and so on. But it's certainly a great you know, document of how just immaculate Opeth are as a live band. You know, I've seen them live on that cycle a couple times, and I've always very much enjoyed seeing that kind of material. It is like just going to the, you know, the big prog rock show, but from a band in our kind of time who are still, you know, making wicked material like that. Just black vinyl, but it is quite heavy black vinyl, like, you know, very well, you know, resources put into it and so on, very well realised. Cool little, you know, Opeth live record. It's one of the only Opeth vinyl that I currently have, shamefully. I believe I have Pale Communion. I need to pick up all, you know, obviously the classic stuff. They've just put out a bunch of the candlelight stuff, but it's expensive at the moment. But at some point I'd like to get those. But, you know, hail to Opeth. And then, like I said, from here on, I've just got some stuff from kind of records from last year that I'm getting around to picking up now before we, you know, move into, again, the rest of the new year. First up, I won't spend very long on this one because I believe in the previous edition of this video series, Sam had it as well. But obviously, this is the record that all of us on the podcast just agreed on and fawned over. So not surprising to see it pop up multiple times. It's Blood Command with Praise Armageddonism, Norwegian death pop punk band, whatever you want to call them. Just absolutely fucking one of a kind at this point. Like, they have been brilliant for ages, but the fact that they are over a decade in now to kind of breaking through, and I think this is their best record. Like, again, when it came out, I was like, man, this might be vying with, you know, Cult Drugs for my favourite. It's already surpassing Funeral Beach. Now I think it's just like, you know, Blood Command are in the best shape they have ever been right now, creatively, as a live band, certainly. as Sam showed, it's on this hot pink magenta. Why not? But the track list on this record is fucking superlatively good. Just anthem after anthem, brilliant, surprising, creative moves on it. I need to pick up the rest of the Blood Command records, but like, you know, if there was one that I was going to immediately grab when it came out, it would be this lovely thing. Surprised that Sam didn't show this one in their last video. Imperial Triumphant and Spirit of Ecstasy is my next record here. I believe I've shown Alphaville in one of these videos before. Would like to pick up Vile Luxury as well, because that's sort of where this run begins. But one of the most creative and nightmarish and immersive extreme metal sort of runs of records, I suppose we're on now, that is being currently made. I absolutely love this band. I'm still desperate to see them live, and I know they're doing a UK tour like very soon, but they're not coming close enough to me. But Spirit of Ecstasy is the most this is very heavy black vinyl as well, which is nice. It's got that real feel of, you know, kind of an old vintage jazz piece or something like that, which is I know they like to kind of replicate in their aesthetics and stuff like that. But this is one of the most demented you know, extreme metal records to come out of lately that I actually think makes sense. Like, I know there are people out there who do not say that with Imperial Triumphant, but there are so many, you know, avant-garde, you know, extreme metal records that get uploaded to Bandcamp. You know, the entire I Void Hanger, that's a record label, catalogue and things like that. And, you know, lots of them are cool. So many of them are just impenetrable or have no songs, or just, you know, they're just absolutely, you know, nightmare experiences. The fact that Imperial Triumphant are, like, are they on, is it, yeah, Century Media they're putting these records out? I think that does show a level of, you know, it is possible to penetrate these records, and there is something that is really tangible that is going on there. And I think this record is, while it is the most mental thing that Imperial Triumphant have done to date, I think when you look at the different tracks on it and the different vibes that they go for, whether it be Chump Change, whether it be Tower of Glory, City of Shame, down into the kind of the, you know, the individual kind of instrumental pieces they do, like in The Pleasure of Their Company, this record covers so much ground. But the fact that I kept wanting to come back to it, I think is the real celebratory point, I think, with Imperial Triumphant. Interesting, you know, Alphaville, again, the whole aesthetic of the album and everything is so perfect. This one had a very interesting kind of idea as well. It's drawing on, you know, old kind of flapper dancers and stuff like that. But hugely rewarding extreme metal records on the experimental sphere. If you put the time in, I really think that they are, it's not nonsense, they're onto something. And then I think much easier to get into, maybe, you know, more kind of drawing on the stuff that I was showing at the earlier part of this video. This is Sumerlands and Dreamkiller, which is another record that we were super, like, as a sort of rule, positive on the podcast. The fact that there is this band here doing this kind of, again, Scorpions, Wasp, Dokken, whatever type, unbelievably high quality commercial 1980s heavy metal songwriting to this degree in the present day is like exactly like the world will be so significantly worse off if we didn't have Sumerlands and bands like them in the world. I bought this from HMV, which is nice because I didn't have to import it or anything, but it's on a purple, you know, snazzy. This record is so fun, so big. As a track list, it is fucking just, it goes toe to toe with those Scorpions records and everything, and those, you know, great Dokken, even fucking Van Halen records or whatever. Like, if you've heard this record, look at that track list. Where is the filler? 8 tracks, it's fucking unbelievable. The amount of different, again, feels they get. Where you got something like The Saviour's Lie, which is kind of their moving into that sort of epic doom territory that they've otherwise got full bands that they explore with and stuff. But mostly it is, you know, this driving a car till it explodes, Dreamkiller, Edge of the Knife, the synth work and that kind of pop sheen that you get on Heavens Above and Night Ride. It's an absolutely wonderful heavy metal record. I wish to fucking God that they could come over here and do a UK tour soon. I know Internal Champion, who share a lot of members, They've come over a couple times. I saw them last year, so I'm hoping that Sumerlands can do the same, because I will be there. This record is so fun. If you like 1980s heavy metal and you've not heard this, it is like one of the essential things to come out in the modern era. So, Sumerlands. Back to extreme metal. This is a very recent pickup for me. Immolation, Acts of God. And the fact this is a recent pickup, this record came out in February of last year, so it's over a year old now. And it is one of the things from my, my 2022 list that I've still been listening to. And considering, there's been comments made about it being a really long record and stuff like that, that says something. My God, have Immolation made... Like, the more time goes on, the more I question whether this is actually the best Immolation record. Like, period. This is a fucking near flawless execution of how to do imperious, powerful death metal. This record is staggeringly heavy. It is so evil, which is what I want in my death metal. It is produced to perfection, and as a track list, again, it is lengthy, but like the amount of incredible death metal songs on this, like an Act of God with that chorus and stuff, is like catchy Immolation material, which I don't always necessarily do. Noose of Thorns has like the biggest riff they've ever fucking written. This record is just, again, for me, it is the out and out, just pure death metal release of last year. It enters in up there with records like Violence Unimagined from Cannibal Corpse recently, for like these kind of older bands doing in terms of their catalogue, real fucking high bar, high watermark things. Brilliant record. It's on, because it is a quite lengthy record, it's on an awesome kind of double LP. I think it is just black. Yes, it is. But again, heavy. That on the gatefold there was the Immolation guys, who we were lucky enough to meet when we were in London for UK Death Fest when we saw them last year. Sort of bumped into them outside a kebab shop and got to chat with them for a bit. Immolation, I think, like I said, a couple of times when we were reviewing this record and talking about it and stuff, they were never, like, I've always liked Immolation, but they've never been one of my favourite of the kind of old school American death metal bands. I was always more into Cannibal Corpse or Morbid Angel or Autopsy. But the last sort of, handful of years really sent into overdrive and capped off by them releasing one of their all-time best records, has really, reinvigorated and boosted my Immolation love. Whereas now, again, I don't think they quite have an Altars of Madness in them in terms of their catalogue, or, a Tomb of the Mutilated or whatever, but holy shit, what a band. And still a standard bearer for making death metal that is this fucking good, which is absolutely what you want. And then the last record for this video, I've tried to fly through them at sort of a decent pace, is... Man, I ran out of superlatives of this in record time at the end of last year, because, God, I had to cram it in. Ashenspire, Hostile Architecture. If you listen to our end of year, album of the year show and stuff like that, this record did not get spoken about on TNM when it came out. I heard it, but for some reason I didn't quite go far enough into it at the time. I was just, thinking about other things or whatever. Came to, looking back over the year to stuff that I wanted to give another go. Went back to this, and it blew my fucking mind, and now easily the best extreme metal record of last year. One of the best of the last few years. A modern classic of black metal, of kind of, sort of political extreme metal, if you will, of experimental extreme metal. This record, if you are not familiar with Ashenspire, Scotland-based avant-garde black metal band, where this has all of the sonic nightmare fuel of, again, that Imperial Triumphant record, but based in a real grey, oppressive, capitalist dystopia kind of record, where this has the overall arc of this as an album in terms of its subject matter, its thematic weight, how it delivers that to you, and the sonic world it creates for that is like a masterclass. It has, again, the real the experimentation and the sounds that you don't know where they're coming from, but with a real emotional gut punch, tear your fucking soul to pieces way that, you know, I associate with the likes of like Altar of Plagues and so on, who are some of the greatest bands to ever do it. I am bowled over by this record. I haven't quite listened to it as much in the last kind of month or two, because I really rinsed it as soon as I was like, oh my god, I didn't give this record enough time at the time, and then in sort of come December, it's like, you know, listen to this multiple times a day, which is heavy going for a record as dense as this is. But when I put it on now, it floors me. Lovely, kind of the presentation here with, like, you know, the album cover with the track list and even, like, you know, the musicians and so on it. Again, it almost feels like an old jazz record, or like, you know, a kind of a classical, you know, concerto or something like that. But in this, you know, suffocating urban malaise kind of world. If you like your extreme metal to really take you places and push buttons, that's sonically, thematically everywhere, this is essential listening. And that is the last one for this video. So thank you very much for watching. We will be back with more of these very soon. Thank you much for continuing to support us here at the podcast as well, where we've got our reviews episode coming up very, very shortly for April. We will have more specials and some guests and stuff as well coming very, very soon. So thank you for being with us. Stay tuned. Cheers.